Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Susie Say That. Today's topic is bringing good tidings, which means to bring good news. So my question for you all today is, do you bring good news? Or is it all about you and yours instead of God and his? Do you bring good news to your neighbors? Do you bring good news to your friends? Do you bring good news when you're out and about in your community? Or is it all about you and yours instead of God and his? Do you bring good news to others, or do you just bring mess all the time? Do you bring gossip and rumors and just keeping up stuff, trouble? Do you bring good news, or do you bring bad news? Because bringing good news to others is a great indicator that you know who you are inside. You know what your purpose is. You know what you're here for. When you bring good news, you got a leg up on others that bring bad news all the time. You know, there's many ways to bring good news. You can bring good news to your neighbors. You can bring cards. You can give cards out to your neighbors. You can mail cards. Cards is one of my love language. I like sending out cards. And I used to send out cards to people all the time, but I had stopped doing it. And I was in Hobby Lobby and I seen this bag of cards that was really cheap. And I picked up the cards and I was like, oh, I'm going to start back sending out cards, because it's something that I used to love to do. So I was encouraged. We're bringing good tidings to others. Not too long ago, I was in my neighborhood and one of my elderly friends wasn't feeling well, and she asked me, could I come back to her house? And I was like, yeah, I'm on the mission, but I will come back. And I did go back over there, and I was on the phone. As I went into her house, I let her know I was on the phone talking to the prophetess, and she knows who she is. And she was like, can you all pray for me? Because I was praying, asking God to send me someone that can pray for me, because I'm so bad in my back. And I was like, okay. I was like, do you want us to pray for you? She says, yes. We prayed. She felt just great afterwards. And she was like, oh, well, now I can go camping with my kids. And I was like, okay, well, I'm thinking to myself, this is done. I've brought good news to her, brought prayer, which is good, always good news. So then she says to me, can you stay a while? And I was like, oh, to myself, I got so much to do. But then I was like, oh no, she's asking for my company. She wants some company. So she said, can you stay? And I said, sure. So I stayed, and I eat after 11 o'clock a.m. and it was time for me to eat, and I was hungry, but I never said a word to her. As soon as we sit down and started conversating, she said, would you like an apple? Would you like an orange? Would you like some popcorn? It was my favorite popcorn at that. So we talked and we fellowshipped, and she shared with me about her children, her husband, who hasn't been gone that long. And we talked about him, and we talked about her marriage for 50 some years. We just had a great conversation. I brought good news. I brought prayer. I bring good news to her. I bring good tidings. It's all about bringing good tidings to others. And sometimes it's just conversation. There may be other times it's monetary. There may be other times that you need to go and volunteer somewhere. Good news can be brought in any kind of conversation. You can bring good news if you desire. But see, most of us, we're so selfish. We're so caught up in me and myself and I and mine, that we don't bring good news to anyone. Because when you're caught up in yourself, in your own family, your own job, your own this and that, you don't have room to bring good news, because that's your attention is there. You ought to open yourself up some to start bringing good news to others. Just open yourself up some. I have a 92-year-old neighbor. I hadn't seen her in a long time. And when I saw her, my eyes lit up, because I was concerned about her. I thought maybe her son had let her go into a condo or a retirement home. I didn't know what happened to her, but I was so excited to see her. And we talked, and I was like, where you been? And she was like, you know, Susie, I don't drive no more. She's 92 years old. She said, I stopped driving, and I had some eye surgery. She said, so I really don't drive. She was like, how's your grandson? Because her husband's house used to be a safe house where my grandkids would be here. And if I wasn't at home, then they were allowed to go to her house. Always, her house was number one, because I knew them. I knew them when I first moved over in this neighborhood, and I trust them. And she was like, it would be such a blessing when I would see your grandson. He would come over here, and before he would leave, I would tell him take much as candy he wanted. She said, but he was so mannerable. He would just take a few pieces. She said, how is he doing? And I started showing her pictures of him, and she was just so lit up about that. She was so happy. And then I told her, I said, listen here, if you ever need me, I said, do you still have my number? She said, no, I don't have your number anymore. I gave her my phone number. I said, if you ever need me for anything, just to run to the store, whatever, call me, because I'll do it. That's bringing good news. You know, most of us, we think about ours. We think about if I get a blessing, I'm going to bless my children. That'd be the first thing out your mouth. I'm going to bless my children. But what about bringing good tidings to someone else first? What about that kid at school that need a new outfit? Believe me, I work in the school system, so I know there's kids that don't have anything new. What about you buying an outfit for somebody else's child, taking it up to the school and say, give this to the less fortunate. Give this to somebody. I want to be good news. Give this to a child that don't have it. What about those fancy book bags that you all are getting for your children? I used to get fancy ones for mine too. I did that. But I volunteered too. I volunteered and I always gave something to the school. I would give my children's clothes if they were too small to the school, tennis shoes. I always gave something to the less fortunate. So what about you starting your year off at the school by giving a book bag? I know they gave away tons of book bags in our community, but guess what? Maybe the parents couldn't get there to get a book bag for their child. So you can now do it. You can take a book bag to the school and say, give this to a less fortunate child that didn't get a book bag. It's not all about you and yours. It is about God and His. What about being good news to someone else? When my children were young, they used to volunteer. And I remember one time my children were like 12 and 13, and they asked me, could they volunteer alone? They was like, can we go to the church for Thanksgiving and volunteer to feed the homeless? And I felt some kind of way about it because I was like, I'd never leave them alone, at these kind of places. But I called the church and I told them what my children wanted to do. And there was a church that we wasn't familiar with. It was their first time there. So it's like, yeah, you could drop them off to do the volunteer work. I'm telling you, when they came out of there, and they seen all those homeless kids and the parents. And when they came out that church, the first thing they said, Mommy, we feel good. That was just good. Mommy, there's so many hungry people, so many this and that. And I said, we thank God for our food. We thank God for our clothes. We thank God, and we can just thank God for that. And me and my son used to volunteer in the community. We would volunteer I think it was like on a Thursday, we would volunteer every Thursday with this lady to feed the homeless. Every Thursday. This lady would fix a soul food dinner for the homeless at the Red Cross. And me and my son was her volunteers. We would go and we would give our time. We would clean up. We would do whatever we needed to do. We was of assistance to give. So my thing with you all, ask yourself this weekend, do you bring good tidings? Do you bring good tidings to others? Like if you see someone at the gas station and they paid for $5 worth of gas, if you have it to give, why not just give them another 5 or 10? Why not just say, hey, I want to pay for $5 or $10 over your gas? What about in the grocery store? You see a person with a bottle of water. What about just saying, hey, go ahead, I'm going to pay for that? How do you give good tidings? What about having a conversation? Years ago, I used to volunteer at the nursing home and through this ministry, and I would just go every Friday, and I wanted to give ice creams to those that never had visitors, and there's plenty of them. And I would go into this one lady's room, and she would eat the ice cream, and she wouldn't say 2 words. It didn't matter to me because I brought good news. Good news was that ice cream, and she enjoyed it. I did that for a while. So it's all about bringing good news. Ask yourself, do you bring good news or do you always bring the bad stuff? Because truly, bringing good news before bringing the bad news, it will make you feel so good inside that you gave. You gave today. What about your job? How often do you stop? I ain't going to be buying them donuts. Why not? Why not buy 6 donuts and put it at the lunch table? Because you don't know who didn't have time to eat this morning. Maybe they didn't. And then they found out you brought the donuts. And then they come past you and they say, hey, I was so hungry this morning. I was so glad to see those donuts. No, most of the time why you don't do it? Because it's about you and yours instead of God and His. You want to shake and move this world? Then start being good tidings. Start being good news to others. Start bringing that to others. What about the grocery store? Letting someone go in front of you or letting someone get your park. That's bringing good news. Paying someone's tab at a restaurant. There's many ways that we can be good news, but most of us can't be good news because we're busy bringing bad news. What about those of you that's sick in your bodies? You can't go nowhere, but you can buy your neighbor a meal. You can ask, can you buy them a meal? You can knock on your door, have somebody knock on your door and ask them what they're eating tonight. You ate tonight and you have money to help someone. There's many ways where you can bring good news to someone else. Try it. Try bringing good news to someone else. I guarantee you, you'll like it. Or is it about you and yours? How many times? What do you get? What do you get? When you see all these church ministries and some of my great ministries online, do you sow into it? Do you say, well, I'm going to give $10? Because $10 is, they can fix up something. They can give to the homeless. They can do something. No, you don't. Because it's all about you and yours instead of God and his. But I guarantee you, if you come out of that selfish mode of just you and yours, God will show you what it is to be about God and his. He'll show you. You won't miss a meal. You won't beg bread. The more you give, the more it'll be given to you. The more you serve, the more you'll be served. So what about trying that this weekend? See how it works for you. See how you feel so grateful afterwards. See how you feel so good. Teach your children. If you're not teaching your children to give out of themselves, teach them about volunteer, you're in trouble. You are going to be in trouble because they'll never learn how to give outside of themselves. They'll just end up being takers. You don't want your children to be takers. You don't. You want them to be givers. Not being givers at the point that you have to suffer. That's not giving. But giving because you have more than enough. You have your able body. You're able to walk. You're able to talk. You're able to drive. So why not drive by the nursing home and tell them that you're affiliated with this ministry and you want to give your time 2 hours a week? I'm just saying, I don't know, but there are things you can do to bring good tidings. Try it. You may like it. Till the next time.